Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, it's January 11th of 2022. I have a appointment tomorrow in the morning with the heart doctor. I actually go in to see the cardiologist once a year because I've got a device that's hidden, I think, back. Where is it? Oh, here it is. It's right there, this round thing. Sitting up there. Well, you still can't see it. I think this is in the way. Well, it's right behind this. Oh, I don't need that. I don't need that up there right now. I've been messing with some cameras here. Okay, there we go. So, and that monitors me all the time. And if something goes wrong with the things that the machine notices, it sends it automatically in. And then 3 times a year, because I see the doctor once a year, 3 times a year, every 2 or 3 months, it just automatically sends all my data in. So, why did I tell you that? I don't know. Um, Maybe it's nice to know. Um, I have not, I actually did hook them up a little bit, but the, where's the other one? Okay, it's laying someplace else. Oh no, here it is. I already had this on hand, the Elgato. Oops. Oh, no, okay, it just says the Elgato audio-visual device that you can hook up to your computer, and you can use with OBS and things like that to bring in video and audio, or to bring it in from someplace else, something else, a game or whatever. I I did use that in the past. As I mentioned the other day, the reason I stopped using it was because it seemed like it was more of a problem with the other camera, which was a Panasonic G7 digital camera. It seemed like it was more problems, getting it adjusted and getting things that I wanted than it was just with a UBS, a USB, you know, camera. So I just said to hell with it and did that. Now I'm thinking maybe I want to play with them. Well, I ordered this in. And the reason I did was, I said the other day, was that this didn't use, I didn't have to install a driver, download it and install it or anything. I guess everything's in its BIOS or, whatever. But then when I looked at these two side by side, this was what, $39 or something. And the Elgato, I forget at the time how much it was. I'm thinking like $150 or something like that. I decided that I think what I want to do is, sorry about that noise, I want to use the Elgato with my computer here that is running Windows 11. And I watched a couple YouTube videos where people were talking about not just this, but those ones you can get for it's like a USB stick, and you can buy those for like $15, and they work pretty good, and they use the same software exactly. All of them are using the same software. Uh, so that's my plan when I get around to it. And so what else is going on? I'm having trouble getting signed up to get my booster shot for the virus. I don't know whether Walgreens, a pharmaceutical company here that has, pharmacies every few blocks, I don't know if they're using their own software to schedule appointments or if they just are tying into a system that is set up by the government or something, whether to schedule appointments. But Walgreens, yeah, their software sucks. And two, what we're trying to do, which is probably a mistake now, is my ex-wife, she got hers booster shot through her doctor or whatever. But now I need a booster shot. My grown son needs a booster shot. My grown daughter, she lives in an apartment over there, and she needs the booster shot. And my grandson, her son, of course, lives with his mom, and he needs. So there's four of us that need the booster shot. But that's a problem, and I'm thinking we're just going to have to, sort of every man for himself. So it'd be nice if I could go into my cardiologist today, but when I go there, they don't. So they do the thing in the office, they take your temperature and my blood pressure when I go in and ask me a few questions. Well, first when I go into the lab or whatever for 15 minutes. And when I say lab, it's not, it's, they go in and then they put the device on me that takes all the data out. And it does the same thing that it scans me. But they get the data right there then. And then they send me over to the doctor, the cardiologist, and anyway, there's no blood. They don't do any blood work on me. They do, of course, when they go in, they do my blood pressure, check my blood pressure and my temperature and my weight, and that's that's about it. So anyway, let's see what is going on here. Republicans stand up for Mike Rounds after Donald Trump's attack. Somebody was asking a question. It was just somebody who wrote in, who did a comment someplace. Said, should people in the military who engaged in the attack on January 6th of last year, should they lose their pensions, military pensions? And immediately my thoughts on that is, no. Although what happened had, I don't care what the Republicans say, that wasn't, it wasn't the Democrats that did that, it was Republicans, it was a right wing, and it wasn't as some Republican Congress people who had to hide and were calling, having somebody call the White House and say to the president, stop this, call this attack off, stop that, they were, it was what you see. Now, if you're one of the right-wing people, then you're in like a cult and you don't actually know what's going on. So, but for the rest of us, but anyway, my thought is, no, these people that were in the military, they enlisted in the military. In order to get a pension, you have to do, I think, 20 years all this, and no, not, don't, but on the other hand, then I was thinking, because of something that these people were, you know, saying and doing and what they're up to. I was never in the military. I wanted to be in the military. I was rejected. I was rejected for being way underweight. But what I always forgot about was that since the first grade, I had major hearing loss in both ears. And I totally forgot about that. That alone, that would have, kept me out of the military. So anyway, but I don't know. Now I'm thinking, if those people who were at the, let's say the insurrection, the treason at the, Congress breaking in, and I think that was what they did is treason, and I think what Donald Trump did was treason. If they were doing that in the military, I mean, if they were attending Klan meetings, if they joined the Klan while they were in the military, if they oath keepers or if they went in when they were in the military, and they were doing that, I gotta, but I think, yes, I think when it comes down to it, yes, they should lose their pension. I may be wrong, I may be wrong on that, because it just doesn't feel right. But on the end, if they were committing treason, they had sworn an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States when they went into the military. Well, the same one that you swear when you become a police officer, or other things. But yeah. I'm really concerned, for the United States. The situation that the Republican Party put us in, but then by picking Donald Trump as your person to run for President of the United States and getting him elected the first time, my God, because Trump didn't win the second election, but he just about did bring the United States to the point of bringing the country to an end. If he had won by attacking everything the way he did, which in a way was, he did some things that were so stupid, He had 60 or 62 or 63 or something court cases after he lost the election that went, to the courts, actually went to the courts, and all of the courts, even the ones where he had appointed judges, every one of them, there wasn't one court that said there was any. They all, they at different levels, but they said, no, there isn't anything here. It's not right. Don't bring a frivolous case like this to the courts. I mean, it was just zero. He had no. And then even the states, when they were counting the things, even the Republican states, those people who were counting it, even they said, no, Trump lost. But now, after this insurrection, after this treason, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that our nation is going to survive, because now we have he has Trump destroyed our confidence in, well, not our confidence, but his followers are convinced to a very high degree that Trump actually, was cheated out of the election, that he actually won. That's crazy talk, but then is that what you call something from, people who have been, duped into, I don't know. But I am really concerned that that this may be the end of the United States, that he just about accomplished it by a mob, and actually some of his people now have come out and said, oh no, some of his people that support him and that were in high positions or had a lot of power, they're saying, oh no, this, of course they don't call it an insurrection or whatever, like it was just a demonstration that, yes, 4 people died, they smashed into doors, they did thousands of, maybe millions of dollars worth of damage, and a whole bunch of officers have suffered post-traumatic stress disorder, all those things, and I don't know if I believe them. I think I do believe these 1 or 2 Republican supporters who were conspiring with disloyal and traitorous Republicans in the House and the Senate. They're saying, or this guy is saying, that they messed up. Those people weren't supposed to. They were supposed to just cause a disturbance and delay things, and then the Congress, the Republicans in Congress then would say, well, we passed the deadline for certification of these things, so we're going to send back 5 or 6 states, their things back to the Republican states, where the Republican state the authorities there had actually said, no, Trump lost. That it was to be sent back, and then what they would do then, and they had 100 or so Republicans, whatever, they would send this back, and then these Republicans in these various states would say, okay, well, now we're not sure, so we need to check this out. Now, they already checked it out, they checked it out, and even though Trump called and said, I need votes, I need you to change the votes, and I did all kinds of things and put pressure on him, even then, the key ones, the important ones, the elections, they held, firm. But what was supposed to have happened with their plan was that these would go back, and then the people who approved them before, with a angry, Republican base behind them, would say, no, we need to. And then President Trump, he was president at that time. He had lost the election, but it wasn't time for Biden to, take office. So the plan would be then that Trump would say, well, this election, which was actually crazy, but the plan was then that Trump would say, well, the election's in doubt, so the only thing that we can do is I'll just have to stay in office. Or he would, something like that, I would just have to stay in office, So, anyway, let's look at CNN's page here. I mentioned this, I won't mention it again, but I actually worked for a guy he was director of security, and I was a security officer, and I worked for him. And I wondered about him, but anyway, he was very smart, unlike Trump. Trump is really, really stupid. And anybody, if you think that Trump is smart, there's something wrong with you, you know. But anyway, this director of security I worked for, he was very smart, man. But he couldn't handle people. It was amazing. I couldn't understand it. And then he did things, constantly bragging about himself and telling people how important he was, and all this kind of stuff. And that really grated on me. I mean, there was a whole bunch of things where, one of our security officers married a real nice, he was a really good security officer, a really nice guy. And he married this ER nurse, and she was just, she was like a saint. I mean, as far as I know, she was just wonderful. So it was just great, couple. But anyway, I just happened to be, the director of security was getting ready to go home, and the other security officer, because he came in because his wife worked in the ER as a nurse, he came in, I guess, to drive her home or something. I don't know what, but they just ended up in the cafeteria. It wasn't during cafeteria hour, and so we all ended up sitting at the table, the director of security, myself, and then this couple. And the couple just happened to mention that, they already had a baby. They already had a baby on the way at that point. And the security officer just said, we just, we got the baby stuff, I had 4 kids, so I knew what the baby stuff was, strollers and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, we fixed up a little, area for the baby, and everything. And then the director of security immediately, jumped in. He said, I just spent, and I forget how many thousands of dollars to do, and he just bragging. I'm sitting there thinking, but I didn't understand any of that, I didn't understand why he had to tell everybody how important he was, and show him, take people out of the hospital. I mean, not patients or anything, but, go in, he bought a new Cadillac, and I'd be making my rounds or whatever, and he'd go in the hospital and bring out the director of food service or the director of housekeeping or somebody to show his Cadillac. And just all the stuff that he did, I did not understand that he had, mental problems. If I had, I would have quit right away, because it was hard working for him, and I had to correct a lot of stuff. I had to do 4 grievances against him, which I won, and against him. But if I'd have known, okay, this guy, because I thought, well, maybe I can get him to stop being so racist. Maybe I can get him to stop doing these things. Or maybe he'll see, because he was smart, smart at paperwork. And it was all set up. I got where I really couldn't take him anymore, although I liked him. Now, of course, years later, after the director of security was even dead, everything, Trump is with us. And now, from what the books have said about Trump and about what doctors have said about him, what we know, now oh wow, but maybe Donald Trump is, you know, more advanced than the director of security was, you know, and but I think no, I think no, I think because you know Trump didn't do well in college, and Trump doesn't read, and all these things that Trump, you know, talks about, you know, that people say about him. So I don't think it's just, oh, and then uh, years later, after I moved on from Trinity Lutheran Hospital, where that director of security was, when I moved on and years went by, uh, the hospital I was working at, when I started working at that hospital, they had one hospital, the Research Medical Center, and then they built a new hospital in the small town that I lived in, and I went out there for 10 years, and then I came back for, let's see, anyway, so some time goes by, and the hospital that I was working for then, you know, that was when I started there, just one hospital, and then while I was there, they built a hospital and I went there for 10 years, and then they were taking over other hospitals. They took over almost all of the hospitals in the Kansas City area, except for, you know, KU Medical Center, and except for Truman Medical Center, which is like what the government-run, you know, hospital, not a veterans hospital, but you know, the hospital. But they had taken over almost all the other hospitals, and anyway, so I was working at the main hospital back at the main. I got yanked out of the hospital that I was working in my hometown because I was picked as employee of the quarter. You couldn't be employee of the month because we didn't have enough employees at that hospital. But I got picked as employee of the quarter, and they had a party for me at the hospital. And unfortunately, the director of security and a lieutenant who spent his entire time bad-mouthing me, and I'm talking about years. Yeah. But so anyway, we took over. They took over this other hospital where this director of security was working, who had what Trump has, and who I'd had such a hard time with when I was there. So anyway, the security officers that went down there, they came back and they said, "Jim, you know, you used to work at Trinity Lutheran?" I said, "Yes." And well, how could you, you know, stand it? And I said, "Well, it was difficult." I said, "But you know, why?" And they said, "Well, he's unstable. He's, you know, such and such or whatever." I said, "No, he brags all the time about himself, and he egotistical and that type of stuff. But no, he's." And they said, "Well, like his gun policy." And I said, "Well, what's wrong with the gun policy?" Because I had some input in it actually, you know. And they said, "Well, his thing, a procedure where if you have to shoot somebody, you're to shoot him in the leg or the arm or something." And I said, "Oh, no." And they said, "Yes, that's his policy." And I said, "No, he's actually a smart man, but he has some problems." But they said, "No, that's his policy. We saw it. He showed it to us." And I said, "Oh my God, really?" And they explained a little bit, you know. And I said, "Well, he's mentally unstable." Wow. And I said, "It must have just happened." Anyway, after I was, you know, working there, called back to the main hospital to work there, and then I ended up going out to another for the hospital, one that we took over. Well, actually, I went down for a few days to the hospital where I had worked, where we had the problem with Bob Ross. Anyway, I went to a different hospital, small hospital, not the one in my hometown, because they were trying to, show me that they could screw with me. So anyway, I went to this hospital, and that hospital, of course, policy varied on it, one of the things, but the nurse in charge at night would sometimes have to go to the pharmacy that was closed and use her key, and I would have to use my key. It took 2 keys to get in. And then I would stay there with her while she was in there. And as she's getting the medication that she needs to go to take to the emergency room or to take to the floor or whatever, we talked and everything, and she said, she says, "You worked at Trinity Lutheran Hospital, didn't you?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I worked at St. Mary's Hospital, which was right next to Trinity Lutheran Hospital. I mean, right next to the street, and then, so, and she said, the Bob Ross, the director of security there, she said, oh, the hospital that she was working at had just become, as they were in the process of like shutting it down or whatever, they left it a psych unit. That was all it had. And she said, well, I was, a psych nurse. And she said, I recognized immediately that Mr. Ross, had serious mental problems, And I said, well, when I worked at Trinity, he didn't have mental problems. And she said, well, he has them now, or whatever. Of course, I didn't realize, she was actually right, of course. But he also said he had progressed, with his disease, as I'm sure Trump has and is. And she said, I had to get him fired. She says, I wrote up, the information about the things that she observed and what he had and whatever, and gave that to the administration or whatever, and he was fired. But anyway, when I was Mr. Ross liked me. I mean, I did 4 grievances in one. The 4th one that I did, we were actually afraid that his office and our office, security, was on this different offices, but on the 6th floor. And I wrote him up again. I didn't want to. And I just couldn't understand why he couldn't see, no, what you're saying and doing is wrong. And I'm correct, and here's my, the grievance that I turned in, And we were actually afraid that he might jump from the 6th floor window or something for a little bit. I tell you, a little bit of it was on my part. He gave me, from the very beginning, he gave me the most because he was smart and he was correct. He gave me the unbelievably great merit reviews. I mean, he gave, in his merit reviews, he says, that when he moved on to a higher position, and he went in the hospital, and of course I told him, you're not going anywhere. You're lucky you got, with a smile on my face, you're lucky you got this job. You're not going to be moving on to assistant administrator of the hospital or anything like that, but he thought he would. And, but I really liked him because the merit reviews he gave me were wow. By the way, then I'd worked for a hospital before I came to work at Trinity Lutheran Hospital, where there was 10 security officers there at St. Joseph Hospital, and 10, not 10 on a shift, 10 total, and which is not really enough to cover a hospital 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a hospital that is in the worst neighborhood in Kansas City, then, and where you locked the doors of the hospital at 9 o'clock, including the emergency room door, and there was like a doorbell installed, and it rang through all 6 floors of the hospital. Of course, and like one night, which was unusual, that shouldn't have happened. There should have been 2 of us, but even then, but there was one night, the nuns did not want to pay overtime or whatever. There was one night, one day, one shift at night, and I had things that I had to do, but I knew I needed to be at the emergency room because that door was locked, and I had to do something on the floor, go up and bing, 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 bing. Somebody is at the emergency, and because of the neighborhood, the nurses, nobody was going to open up that door until security, till I responded to the door. Where at other hospitals where you lock a door, you'll get somebody who will, maybe open the door up for somebody or do something. But anyway, it was that bad. So anyway, when I went over to Trinity Lutheran Hospital, which was in the same neighborhood, but it was further west, and the neighborhood changed a lot. It was like 20 blocks west. Same street running over there, but it was, we had a guy there that was an employee, an orderly, who turned out to be a guy who, when he robbed places, which he did, that was his thing, he didn't leave anybody alive. He had killed the 2 clerks and somebody who was in the store, stuff like that. And it was a big deal, but there wasn't cable television or anything like that, so I'm not sure how far the story about this, but it scared the hell out of business owners in Kansas City. But anyway, so I was working at St. Joseph Hospital, and I just couldn't stand Mr. Ross. Why does he not understand? Why does he lie? He lied about everything. Things that, that you knew immediately that he lied, and then he just kept lying. Remind you of anybody? Remind you of Donald Trump, So I just told the director of security, one, I refused to wear my supervisor's, I still did the supervisor's job, but I refused, and, to wear the sergeant's insignias. And there for months, our director, our lieutenant, had a heart attack. Had 2 actually. Had a heart attack. Was off for a while. I filled in for him. Then he had another heart attack, and he had to have bypass surgery and all this type of stuff. And so while he was gone, I was the acting lieutenant, for a long time. But let me change this here. I just couldn't, Mr. Ross was driving me crazy, because I just couldn't understand it, just could not understand why he did the things that he did. So anyway, I told him, I said, I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to quit, move on. No, I need you, Jim, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. I said, I just can't take you anymore, And he said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know. He says, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I went to welding school when I got out of high school. I said, I'd like to have gone into electronics, and computers and stuff. I've got a computer and stuff like that. That's what so. And he said, oh, well, you could be a biomed tech. And the hospital actually had which, by the way, he was instrumental in starting. He went to administration, hey, we'll save money and that kind of stuff. And he said, well, he says, something, I forget how it went, it's been a long time. That was the 70s, 1970s, not the 1870s. And he says, well, you need to talk to so-and-so, who's in charge of the biomed department. And I said, well, I don't have a degree I haven't been to an electronics school or anything like that. He said, talk to him. And he says, so anyway, I went and talked to the guy, and the guy talked to me, and he said, Jim, because I was into computers early, and he says, we need a computer for this department. And he explained what they did. Well, I knew a little bit what they did because seeing the guys going around, they had to check everything like yearly or monthly or whatever. They had to check the beds for check the wall plugs. I mean, just all this kind of stuff. But he says, all that stuff needs to be. We need a computer system, so we know when we checked something. And anyway, talked about it. He says, I'll hire you. And he says, you're hired if you will. There's not an opening right now, but we got a bunch of guys, that are quitting and going to, and that was, well, they were well paid, by the way, the biomed techs, because the hospital had this thing where they brought in a company, and then the company, what they did is they had the forms and stuff like that, and so what they needed was for each group of employees or whatever, like there was a group, I think it was 3 of us, maybe 5. So we did, we reviewed and filled out these forms and checked, everything. Let's say food service. Okay, well, we did food service, maintenance, housekeeping, and I forget what all. What we didn't do was I think we just had 3 people on the thing. Otherwise, it would have been harder, because we couldn't review security because I was in security, and the other 2 people, whatever departments they were in, they couldn't, we couldn't be doing those because they were in. So anyway, we went through in biomed, and when we rated them, it was like, I forget what it was, how much, technical knowledge do you have to have, or what type of rate it, what if the person, in this category or whatever, what are the chances that they could, I forget exactly what the thing was, but trying to give you a little bit of an idea. What are the chances that they could, by their action or their interaction or something, what are the possibilities that they could cost the hospital a lot of money or stuff like that. Anyway, we did that, and then these numbers were added up, and it was like, oh man, for like biomed, this is before I, and it was like, wow. And then I guess we already knew maybe what they made. I don't remember. I don't think we'd have to, but anyway, I guess we see the numbers add up, and it was like, wow. And sure enough, they were very well paid. And so anyway, this guy says, you got the job, Jim, as soon as there's an opening. And like I said, there was 3, 4 guys or something in the department. They were actively looking for a job in biomed someplace else, with better conditions and maybe closer to home and all this kind of stuff. So I was there, and I was picked. When I got my merit review, which my director of security, gave me the highest. He always gave me the highest, except when I was there 6 months, he did the first merit review on me. And I just came in every day and did my job and hardly ever talked to him. I just did my job. Rain, shine, no matter what, I did my job. And then I got called to go up to his office. And I went up there, and I thought, I wonder what this is about, And I went up there, and he said, I got your merit review for you to do. And I looked at it and thought, oh my God, this guy's in love with me. And so I said, okay, and I signed it or whatever. And I said, thank you very much, and I got a pay raise. The highest you could get was 7%, and I got 6.5%. And after that, after that, at some point, I finally reached where I was at the top of the pay scale, and I'd get merit reviews, which, I couldn't get any money. But Uh, anyway, I got a merit I got my merit review right about this time, you know, when I was waiting for, well, no, yeah, I was waiting for the thing to open, open up. Because the director of security in my merit review, he put, Jim is the best qualified officer here. And he'd put in before in my merit reviews that I should take over his office as director of security when he moved on. He thought he was going to be, and I told him, you're not going to move on, And, so that was in my merit review. And then it was approved by the person at Human Resources Department. The guy there was, the head of that was a really, great guy. And, but, so it was in there, it was in the thing that I would be moving over to the biomed department, a dream job, something that I wanted, when I got out of high school, I wanted to go to they didn't call it was like a radio TV repair. It was a like a radio TV repair, but I couldn't do it. I knew that my math was just not, my math improved, over the years, quite a bit. But my math when I got out of high school was really, really bad. And I knew, and I was, looking at stuff, and seeing how much math was involved. It was really quite a bit, And so I just knew, when I got out now, so I went to welding school. And didn't need math so much. But made good money and was union jobs, But anyway, it was in my, so every morning, the head of the biomed department had to come to security and get the keys to his office and to the department. And so I'd say, I forget his name, really nice guy. And he says, Jim, hang on, just hang on. Got a whole bunch of guys are looking, they're out looking to get a job. It's gonna happen. And I said, I don't think I can stand Mr. Ross much longer. Honestly, I don't think I can take it much longer. And I couldn't. And that was, I walked away from that, that job. Anyway, back to Trump on Republican senator. I'll never endorse this jerk again. Wow. Man accused by the January 6 truthers of being an FBI infiltrator denies claim in an interview with the House Select Committee. The Republicans are saying that the FBI actually did the rioting at the Capitol. And I think actually, I mean, come on, we know, the FBI is always watching, what people, post to various places looking for threats against the president or terrorists, all that, looking for that kind of stuff. And we know from history that somebody who's plotting something, they'll get contacted by, or they'll contact, I mean, the people committing they'll respond to, and they'll be responding to an FBI, and the FBI will, now they're not supposed to, what did we call it? What is it called? Well, they're not supposed to talk these people into doing something. And so there are some rules, But once they know that these people are, and when these people say, we want to blow up something, like I was in Miami and there was a neighborhood there, I forget the name of that neighborhood. It was all black. Maybe there was other minorities there, but it was a bad neighborhood. And there were, gangs there, black gangs there. Maybe there was some other kind of gangs there too. Anyway, then the news comes out that the FBI had arrested, with the local police. I don't know. I don't know how many now, 10, 15, the entire gang or something. And the now I'm not saying that the FBI, but I wonder, because this gang apparently on their own decided that they wanted to contact Al Qaeda, Al Qaeda, and get some money, because they were they're a black gang who oppressed people here in the United States, and so that they contacted Al Qaeda. Well, actually, I mean, they weren't too swift. Well, one, they contacted the FBI agent, undercover FBI agent or something, and so he pretended to be, and they believed he was, and then all of a sudden they decided, well, they also wanted some bombs and stuff like that. They just wanted some money. They thought that the Al Qaeda would give them a bunch of money, and then they could enjoy the money and the girls and all this kind of stuff. All of a sudden, they decided they wanted some guns and they wanted some bombs. And then all of a sudden, the people that are talking to them, who were like FBI agents, I can't say that they suggested that they go from Florida to Chicago. That sounds strange too. But then these guys here I'm surprised that they even knew, that there was a city called Chicago or where Chicago was. I'm surprised. I think was it the Chicago Tower or something or other. They decided that they wanted to go to there and check out because they wanted some bombs. They were going to blow it up. And so the FBI, supplies them with money and one or more people to go with them and go to the Chicago Tower, I think it is, and have them go through and probably making also recordings, Plus there was also, I'm sure, camera crews there from the FBI showing them walking around and taking pictures of, that'd be a good place to put a bomb, that kind of stuff, They were probably saying also to the FBI, when do we start getting this money, and stuff like that. Then they went back to, Miami. And then, boom, SWAT teams, everything come and grab these guys up, And of course, they were probably saying, we didn't do anything. Oh, well, we have conversations of you recording. Let's see, you were asking for money, X amount of money. Let's see, you wanted bombs. You went to Chicago. And no, we didn't go to Chicago. We have video of you and audio in the Chicago Tower. And you wanted bombs, and I thought, now, this, if the FBI or whatever is saying, so, and that's going to look bad because that's what the police are supposed to do, stuff like that, to keep places from being, But on the other hand, if you have these right-wing people who are saying the FBI did the whole thing, it wasn't Trump supporters. There were no Trump supporters there. It was just and you have these Trump supporters who are a cult. They're really, they've been coltonized or something, whatever you call it. So then when a incident or two where stuff comes out that the FBI was watching a certain people, and those certain people went, there, and then if there's just one case of that, which there will be, I guarantee you, that's what the police and the FBI, and that's what they're supposed to do is, when people start talking on, on the internet or whatever about doing something, and even though a lot of these people are, crazy for Cocoa Puffs or something, whatever the expression is, the Republicans will then, the right wing will say, see, we told you that this was all a plot, and those people will then, they'll believe it. I mean, they'll be like, oh yeah, the whole thing was fabricated by the FBI. So that's going to come back and bite the January 6 panel subpoenas former White House official who helped draft Trump's speech. Judge asked why Trump was silent during Capitol riot. Why do you think? Yeah, I don't think he was exactly quiet. I think the stories are coming out from his people that he was watching TV right there and laughing and enjoying, and he was loving it. He thought that was wonderful. And his own daughter came in a couple times, now we know, to the Oval Office or whatever, and maybe he was in the next office over or something, I don't know. Maybe a bigger TV or something, I don't know. But she came in a couple times and said, I think we know what she said, but I'm not sure they released it, but it's going to be like, Dad, for the love of God, please call off the people, call off the mob, tell them to stop, tell the people to go home, and he, no, he was loving it. Justice Department forms new domestic terrorism unit. Thank God. I doubt you remember this. It drove me crazy. Back after I think it was after 9/11. Might have been right before 9/11, but I think it was after 9/11. The FBI, it's hard to believe after what I just said, the FBI had like 5 people in the anti-terrorism unit. Now, if something popped up, of course, then they, then they'd contact, like if it was in Miami, something popped up, well, they'd contact Miami, FBI office and say, hey, and they'd, get some of their people working and they'd put them together, people get whatever. But there was like 5 people. It was unbelievable when it came out in the news. There was only like 5. Well, the way it came out was the FBI, and I think I'm trying to think who the president was. Obama. It came out, and Obama was the president, and that the FBI was going to increase their unit, whatever they call that unit, that had like 5 people, and working in it, and they were going to increase it, I think, to 20 people or 25 people or something like that, and that they were that they knew that they needed to be paying attention to domestic terrorists. I mean, they'd be paying attention to all terrorism, but they knew that they really needed to be, because that's where the things were happening from, And Republicans controlled Congress, and the Republicans went fucking crazy. That was a direct attack on them, that it was an attack on loyal Americans, and so the FBI right away changed it. And they had 5, I think it was 5 people, I might be a little bit wrong, that were working and they were intended to add more people and whatever, and so the Republicans forced them, by, I guess, we're going to cut your budget, we're going to do, do this and that. So it ended up, I think, that the FBI, oh no, we don't need, we don't need 25 people. And it was like Republican Congress, how many do you need? Well, we need 20? No, no. That's an attack on patriot Americans. You're going to, well, 10 people, 10. No. They actually had to let go, They went from 5 people, I don't know, to 3 or 2 or something or other, I'm sure though in some other building, the FBI or whatever, okay, here's what we got to do, call Joe and Bill and Bob and, whatever, and have them work in this office, I'm sure, let's see. Betty White died of a stroke, I guess that a stroke that she'd had 5 days sooner. I thought that was kind of, strange. I heard that she had a stroke, and I thought, then why wasn't she taken right to a hospital? When you have a stroke, or what do they call it? I forget what it's called, but it's like a stroke, but it's like, and when you have something like that, there's more strokes coming, usually, and then 2, of course, she was almost 100, a few days away from being 100. But 2, when you have a stroke, actually we should think of a stroke as a brain attack. There's heart attacks, and then there's brain attacks, and a stroke is a brain attack, and it's just as, and they, when I was working at that small hospital, they came out, and in the beginning it was like testing, but it was, they had things on television, commercials, you may have seen them, probably don't remember them, but it was like, stroke is if you have, they would do the, if you have dizziness, if you have, blah, they go through the list of things or whatever, get checked. That is a brain attack, and it's just as deadly as a heart attack. So I think they said that now that she had, somebody said a few days ago or a week ago or something, said that she had a stroke, and I thought, that's strange. Why wasn't there, why didn't they take her to the, to the hospital or whatever? But she had it, and then I'm sure she probably wanted to stay at home, and she knew she was going to be 100, and probably everybody agreed, and so they were, I'm sure they were expecting, I'm sure somebody was sitting with her and nonstop, and then she passed, and that kind of explained, and I think that's the right thing, right thing to do. Oh, anyway, they came up with this medication, and that's what I was getting at. It was extremely expensive, but if somebody came in to the hospital and the signs were that they had a stroke, this medicine, would be given to them. At first it was like, not experimental, because it was, but it was like they were gathering data and stuff. And if you had a stroke and you got to the hospital within X amount of time and they gave you this, it was like a miracle thing if you got there in time. If you didn't get there, within this time frame that you had to, then it was not probably going to help you, and they probably weren't going to give it to you. Something like that. I'm not a doctor. I forget how expensive it was, but I remember I was working in a small hospital, and this patient came in, all the signs of a stroke, and the ER doctor says, I think we're going to need such and such, that stroke medicine or whatever, a new one. And so the nurse got the thing, opened up the package and got the thing ready. And then I forget what the patient had bleeding, had a problem with bleeding. I can't remember the exact details, but that's then contraindicated. If you don't give you don't give this anti-stroke medicine to a patient that has a bleeding problem, because then they're going to bleed out all over the the place or whatever. So the doctor said, okay, cancel. We're not going to give the patient that medication. And then I remember the nurse was like, oh God. Because I forget, she said, I just opened this, doctor, and it's, so. I mean, she didn't do anything wrong, except she should have probably, but I remember it was kind of interesting being a fly on the wall and watching or whatever, because normally that kind of stuff, she called over another nurse, and she opened it up and she said, okay, patient weighs such and such, and and the other nurse, yeah, I agree, and they did some, calculate, some calculating or whatever, and that was, and then boom, Oh, and then I couldn't believe it. I happened to be working at the hospital that I worked at there, small community, several small communities. And our head ER doctor there was all these paramedics, the fire department and paramedics, they have to have, I forget what they call it, but they have to have a doctor who approves of their system, that he sees what they've responded to, how quickly they responded, he was, and if new procedures or whatever, he was the one they had to get his approval. Anyway, I was working, and the paramedics brought a patient in or something like that, and then I heard the paramedics talking, to each other or whatever while they were filling out their paperwork, and I said, I'm going to talk to Dr. Dar and get us so we can administer this medication for strokes, so we can administer it, when we pick up the patient. That will save time. That'll save, the 15 minutes. That'll save, 30 minutes or whatever. And I thought, I didn't say anything, of course, I thought, no way is that going to happen. And then it was even better than I thought it would be, because those paramedics from that small fire department were kind of arrogant, and they might have been volunteers too. But anyway, so I thought this is going to be good, and then Dr. Dar was done with his work. Dr. Dar, this guy, paramedic says, we'd like to get permission to be able to administer whatever this stuff was. And he says, what? Yeah, we would be, we could carry it on board the ambulance and, whatever, and then when it needed, and he said, no way in hell are you going to be administered. What makes you, and it was like, he actually said to him, I forget the exact word, but what makes you think that you would be qualified to do something, do something like that, And then they were like, okay, doctor. Oh man, because in the beginning, the paramedics. Well, I remember when the paramedics. That'll be like 1972 when I started working hospital security. Paramedics basically, I'm not sure they were paramedics then. Maybe they were, some of them or something. But it was like, okay, something happens, the ambulance responds, okay, stop bleeding, make sure the person's breathing, but they did, I don't think they administered insulin. or, other, it was like ABC, Airway, well, I can't remember now. I should remember because I was a CPR instructor. Anyway, and then I saw where they progressed over time, and then they did get permission to do things when they responded. Let's see. Psychedelic laced beer may have helped this ancient South American empire rule. Man, why couldn't I have been working down there or something? Let's see. Well, Dr. What is it, Fisher, whatever? He's finally sticking up for himself. He really, just a doctor, a prestigious doctor, uh, did it, but man, the right wing crowd has turned, and the right wing people look around for somebody who they think is, and make that person a victim, And there's a man, just a doctor, many, many years of service to his country, to his nation, and they had to give him security right from right when Trump started attacking him. Normally a doctor like that would not need a security detail. He had to get a security detail because of threats against him and his family. God, I hope my ex-wife doesn't see this. Some grocery store shelves are wiped clean of stuff. Man, my ex-wife, we share this apartment, with expenses, and rather than having two, instead of, we'd be paying double. By the way, a few days ago or a week ago or something, I started getting these ads appearing on YouTube I'd see them in front of my video, and I'd see them in other, videos. I thought, what in the heck's going on? And back in 1st of August, I guess I'd been paying $10 a month for YouTube, whatever it is, where you don't see ads. And I pay for so much stuff, and so I've been gradually trying to do away with some stuff, and so I guess August 1st I canceled YouTube Prime, I think it is, or something like that. And then it took a while though, last few weeks or something. I started seeing all these ads popping up. I thought, what the hell's going on? I thought, if they changed their policy or something or other. And then I did some searching, and then I saw, oh. But I was kind of surprised, like I canceled August 1st. Why, but anyway. Today I went ahead and paid the $10, actually 11 something a month. And bang, right away, the ads were, I didn't know that the ads, because I guess I've been paying for that from the beginning. I didn't know that the ads were that intrusive, really. I was surprised, especially the little 15-second or 30-second ones at the beginning. Anyway, I don't see any, it seems to me like the people that are doing YouTube videos seem like they shouldn't have to, the people that are making the YouTube videos, seem to me like they shouldn't have to pay, pay for them. Not everybody. I mean, if you have somebody who makes 1 or 2 YouTube videos, okay, no. But if you have like X number, like for everything else, if you have X number of subscribers and a few other things, then it seems like that you shouldn't have to pay the $11 to maybe that's good though, because now I know what people who don't pay the $11 a month, what they have to deal with. That'll make me turn off monetization maybe on every video or something. I sort of have a lot of times. But let's see, breaking news. Bartender helped ID men who burned Key West iconic South Point buoy. Analysis, how Biden helped shame on opponents in thundering speech. Biden on voting rights. I'm tired of being quiet. Ted Cruz's act of cowardice. Man, Ted Cruz is... And he makes mistakes. I mean, he's supposed to... Everybody hates him. I mean, like... the Senate is 100 senators. Ted Cruz is one of those. And there were reports, going way back, that every senator, Democrat and Republican, every senator in the Senate hates Ted Cruz. And there's other reports and the things that, but people say that he's very well educated and that he's very smart. But my God, he makes unbelievable dumb statements and things. And when he was running against Trump, trying to get the Republican nomination or whatever, to run as the Republican, and Donald Trump insulted Ted Cruz's wife. He says that that he had an ugly wife. That his wife, Trump said that his wife was much more attractive than Ted. I mean, he did this stuff, and Ted Cruz didn't stick up for his wife. He didn't, he didn't tell him, go fuck yourself, you fucking asshole, And then there's been stuff recently that, and I don't understand how these right-wing people, how you'd think that the right-wing people, guns and all this kind of stuff, you'd think that they, it's weird. You'd think that all of a sudden that they would be like, Ted Cruz isn't a real, but no, but if Trump goes against somebody, you've got these people that are Night of the Living Dead, or no, what is not Night of the Living Dead, the ones where people what the ones where the people take over, they put a little plant there or something and it turns into the person, and then they're seems like that's the way they are. I mean, Italian Catholics, Jewish leaders condemn use of the Nazi flag at a church funeral. Off-duty Los Angeles police officer fatally shot while house hunting with his girlfriend. Oh, you're not seeing that, are you? The headlines that I'm looking at. You probably wonder what I'm, Dr. Fauci caught calling a Republican senator a moron off camera. Does he work for the CDC, or, I mean, you really shouldn't, especially federal government, but I mean, what do you do when you know, what comes to me is like, I think if I was a doctor, a prestigious doctor, I mean, whatever, and all my life I had been, in just in the background, nobody, wasn't, you know, virus, strong, you're kind of, you're just in the background doing your job. And then I don't know, I think when something like this popped up and then all of a sudden these brain dead, Trump supporters were threatening me and my family and everything else, I think, and I'm sure he's worked long enough that he's got a pension, I think I would just say. But I guess you're a doctor, and how could you leave it just at a time when you were needed? I mean, if he said, take this job and shove it up your ass, and then, you know, something might be delayed, something might be missed. I guess you just can't, I guess you just can't do that. But Oklahoma inmates ask federal judge for a firing squad. I'm against the death penalty, but on the other hand, I've mentioned this before, and Americans love the death penalty, not just the Republicans, And I admit, when I hear some of these things that have happened, that people have done, but basically, because I know that innocent people have been, executed, and I know, like President Bush, executed. He was running for president or whatever of the United States, and some other states too. The governors, whoever wanted politically to move up or whatever. You have somebody that's too young. You have somebody who's definitely mentally, whatever, and they went ahead gleefully, with the death penalty for political. And two, you just know as a number of people that are, eventually, sometimes they spend 30, 40 years in prison for a crime they didn't commit. And, I remember in the past, fairly recently, you'd have the Republicans, the right wing saying, oh, no innocent person has ever, been sentenced to death and executed. And I'm like, what? I mean, you can see as these people are being released and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, somebody had, and sometimes got very close to being executed. Let's see. No more fees for bounced checks at this bank. I think that's Bank of America. I think I saw something about it. Yeah, Bank of America. I forget what I did with my bank, which I bank with Wells Fargo, and they've had a really bad reputation for things that they do, that they've done. I mean, so much so that it makes you think, shut them down, But I have Wells Fargo Bank half a block away. It's convenient, and actually, I haven't had any trouble with them. And then I forget what they did, or what they had, and it was something like, if you sign up with like the Wells Fargo Bank and give them permission to take money out of your savings account and take money out of something else or something like that, then you won't get any overdraft fees or whatever. And that's worked out pretty good, because I had a couple, I forget what happened. Oh, one thing that happened is the apartment complex that I live in, I've been using for years. Their system sucks. It sucks. But I've been using, the thing where I go there and I pay online, to their account. And sometimes I would go and their system wasn't working, or the thing does stuff, and they would change it, and I would, I'd be the first one to tell, because not a lot of people use it, a lot of people write checks, I guess. And but I'd be like the first person to go down to the office and say, oh, your thing's not working, and they'd say, oh, it's not, and then they'd check, oh yeah, thanks a lot, and but they kept changing things, like one was the how are you going to pay, by you're going to pay, or do you want to use one of these others, use a credit card or something. I forget what it was, a credit card, but you pay like, I don't know, $25, $35, $50 or something to pay by the credit card, which I never, of course, used that. I thought it was really, and they had some other things in there, and I thought, oh my God. I actually complained to the office lady who used to work there, and I tried to explain to her, because she was, oh, well, this is great. I said, no, this sucks. And then I realized, wait a minute, do you think that you have somebody at your head office, because they own a bunch of apartment complexes, do you think that there's somebody there who fixes these problems and takes care of it and blah, blah, blah? And she, yeah. She says, I talked to the guy. And I said, no. Somebody in India has written this program, or some other country like that, and that's where the work is being, oh, no, it's, I forget what their headquarters is. Let's say New York City, And I said, no, listen to me. Okay. I don't doubt, let's say that she said Bob or somebody, I said, I don't doubt that you have when you call there, the phone rings on Bob's desk. And Bob may even have an office, a little tiny office that he has. But he's not writing the code or making the fixes or all that kind of stuff. All he's doing is checking and seeing if there's something, that he sees, there that he can do. Probably nothing he can do. And then he picks up the phone and then he calls India or wherever it is where the people are working. And that's where they take, and she said, no. I said, usually I don't do this. I said, I told her, I said, I forget how I told her. I said, I have had 20 or 25 internet service, internet companies that I have dealt with. They've handled my sites. They have written the code, all this kind of stuff. And I said, now they're in China, things like. And anyway, no. She told me, and I said, okay. Oh, so I forgot to tell you what happened. And it's sort of my fault, I guess, but not. It was their software also. Anyway, I went and paid, collect where they take the money out of my bank. And they'd made a change to their software, And, 3 or 4 days later, I always paid ahead of time. Well, I sort of pay when I get my Social Security money. When I get that, I pay the rent. And, I paid before, I paid before that. Well, no, I think can't even remember now. If I have some money in my bank, enough, then I pay. But if I don't, then I wait for the Social Security money to come in, and when that does, I go there and I pay, something like that. I can't remember now. So anyway, I went over and I paid, and I have other stuff going on, you know. And then it's getting down close to uh, time to pay the rent. Well, I'd already paid the rent, but I went and checked the site, and it showed that I owed the $1,200 or whatever it is rent. And I thought, oh wow, I usually pay. I thought I'd paid, you know. So I went and paid again, and of course it doesn't turn up right away. And then boom, I go check my bank account just about every day, I think. I went and checked my bank account, and two checks, or two things had come through for $1,200. And I was overdrawn by a bunch. So then I realized what I had done. I had paid twice. And I tell you, I did contact right away Wells Fargo Bank. But one thing, because I'd signed up for that thing, they paid there was no overdraft charges for me, because I'd agreed, that whatever. So that was nice, because otherwise I should have had, But so anyhow, I contacted Wells Fargo Bank, and got switched over to somebody, and the person said, "Oh, we'll take you out." They could see what happened. The same amount, 1,200 and let's say $50 or something, twice, whatever. And so they said, "Don't worry, Mr. Howard, we'll take care of it, and there'll be no, fees or anything like that." And then they said something else, "We'll correct such and such also for you and take care of that." And they did, right? And it was like, I think the next day or something. I think the person I talked to said, "May get it taken care of for you tonight, but if not tonight, it'll be taken care of, tomorrow." And I don't think it was taken care of that night. And I thought, oh my God, this is not good. And then the next morning, when I woke up or whatever, all taken care of. So hands off to Wells Fargo for that. Hands off or hands up or something, right? I've said on some of my videos, I've said some pretty bad things about Wells Fargo. Well, I even called them a criminal enterprise because of some of the stuff that went on in the past. I really wish there was a way that I have over 1,000 videos. I'm not sure how many I have here, and there's a ton of them I would like to delete, that they're like out of date. Maybe I talked about a crime or something rather, and as soon as a crime happened or something, I talked about it, and I made a video, and I might have said, okay, I think such and such, and then 2 or 3 days later, information comes, and I was wrong, and there's a few times when I have gone back and deleted that thing, but a lot of times I don't even remember, and then I'll hear from somebody that'll say, well, usually people are pretty nice to me, very nice, but people will say, "Oh, you were so wrong. How could you think such and such?" And at the time, that was a thing that definitely you should think. Everybody should think of that when the facts were, and then it turns out that something was different. But I wish there was some way. I'm not going to go back and watch my videos, and I don't even want to watch them, and I don't really. I just watch a video long enough to see if the audio's okay and a few things are okay. I don't want to sit and listen to myself for 1 hour and 30 minutes, But I've told you that I have really bad hearing, and you know, this looks like to me like a this new creative thing. Looks, it's only $100, and I've bought quite a few speakers, usually the uh, inexpensive ones, you know. But you know, this one looks like it's pretty good to me, and of course, you know, I'm afraid to mess with audio. Whoops. Oh, this is okay. This is not it. This is the Stage 360. Okay, let's see. Okay, come on now. Okay, this is okay. Wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. I think it's a Sound Blaster. Okay, I'll put a link to this speaker, and if you happen to purchase it, well, I'm sure sound bars. By the way, okay, wait, where to go by sorting? But don't sort yet, you know. Oh, okay. Here's the $39 one. I'm using this one right now. Creative, and it must be. I think that's it. $39. Regular price is $49. And okay. You know, some of these ads, too, they give them like names, you know, names or whatever, you know. Okay, I don't want to bitch about that. I want to, let's see, go back here to man, Trump. I'd like to say, well, one, I'm glad that Trump got shut down from posting it on Facebook and that type of stuff. And that, you know, that hurt him, I think, more than anything, you know, more than anything else, big time, you know. I hope they never, ever let him. It should be a permanent. I hope they. And I wish other places would do the same thing. God, you know. Teen arrested after cops say he pointed firearm at victim during road rage incident. Oh, I heard on the news yesterday, I think it was, maybe today. Some type of a rural area, but they have houses that are next to each other. I forget what state. And I guess maybe it's unincorporated city or something or other out there. You know, it's like the country. And there's, like I said, there's houses around there, and the people that live there, they hear gunshots all the time. People go out in their backyard and shoot their guns. And this lady and her husband and her daughter were out checking on their mule or mules or something like that. So you know they have a little bit of room. And they heard gunshots, and a lot, and that wasn't unusual for them to hear gunshots. And then all of a sudden a bullet rips into her, went into her shoulder, well, went into her arm, and then her clavicle, and then I think came out someplace else. Her daughter was standing right by her, and the bullet would have hit that if the daughter had just moved, and it was just a small daughter, I forget, 2, 6 or something, I can't remember, had just moved, away. If not, this lady says, this lady was really badly hurt, but she's in the hospital and she's going to survive. And, she'll probably have maybe some limited movement of an arm or something, or maybe she's going to have arthritis or something. She's going to. And it turns out that their neighbors was 4 guys were out in the neighbor's yard target practicing. And they don't know which of the 4, because they were like, bang, I guess, here, you shoot it, bang, bang, or whatever. Wow. Now, it's legal in that, I was a reserve officer for many, many years, and that's before we had any officers, except all we had were reserve officers. And there were parts of the area that were, and I'd be patrolling by myself, usually. There was areas there that were not in the city of Raymore, where you could just go and shoot a gun. I don't know. There should be some consequences. These 4 guys are out there. It's legal. They can shoot guns. But there should be some consequences, for them. Well, one, they can get sued, in court and have to pay money and all kinds of stuff. But I don't know. It should be something that really strikes fear into their heart, and something would make them, wait, no, don't do this. And that would be, for them not to be allowed to possess a gun or something, something, and not, and then they wouldn't, like everywhere here in the United States on New Year's Eve, there's fireworks, and there's people go out to shoot their guns off, and sometimes they shoot people accidentally, or the bullet comes down, and all kinds of, and stuff like that happens. Americans love their guns, and if you would, but of course people would go, and no politician in the United States would dare suggest, something like that. Make it, if you're, out doing target practice or something and you shoot somebody. Now, I don't think you should do it like you're deer hunting. I mean, if you shoot at a deer and it's not a deer, I mean, that's different. I mean, it's deer season, and people are supposed to wear, clothing so you don't look like a deer, and all types of stuff. But this other thing of going out and where there are houses and other people around, if, of course, we have states, the federal government can't decide something like that. It has to be the states that do it. You got 50 states, and there's politics, involved. If somebody, oh, the Second Amendment allows me to, and I've worked with a guy that was really nice. I mean, he was a really nice guy, and he had a college education in chemistry, not some easy subject, and he was a nice guy, married, a little boy and everything, but he was a gun nut. I mean, he bought things to put his guns in, and so he could bury his guns in his yard. I mean, just. But here in Fort Worth, well, more than one. There's always a bunch of gun accidents. Some guy was at a Walmart and he was checking out, at Walmart, and he reached back to get his billfold and touched his gun, and it went off, and the round hit the floor or something or other, and it wasn't the round, but it was cement or tile or whatever. It hit that, and that happens a lot. That you get hit by shrapnel from, that. I guess the guy had already paid because he just took off running. He had took his stuff with him and took off. But that happens a lot, too often. It happens every day. You hear these stories. What was it? Just happened. I can't remember exactly. Woman, they need to investigate that. Actually, woman was cleaning her gun, and it went off, and I forget how old her child was. Killed her child. But that's if you could use it, but you can't. Not in the United States. If it could be like, okay, if you shoot your guns off, on New Year's Eve and the 4th of July, in the city, and you shoot it off in the air or wherever you shoot it, and if the police can find you, but you can't, and you could, because a lot of people are doing it. But if it was like, okay, one, you have to report an accidental discharge or whatever. I'm saying, let's say you have to report it. And, or if, then you're going to, like the guy in the Walmart, he reached back, he didn't, he's just trying to reach his billfold, and he pulled the trigger on his, and of course he ran. I mean, he got out of there. He knew he didn't want to, but if it were like, if you have something like that happen, no more guns for you. Then there'd be guys like when they're together on its 4th of July and they're drinking and maybe watching a, sporting event or something like that, or New Year's or something. And if they said, the guy would, some guy would say, hey, I got this new Glock. Let's shoot a few rounds through it, And then you go out, and people are shooting off fireworks, and other people are shooting off guns or whatever. And you go out and you fire off a round and you get caught, or you fire off a round and it hits somebody and kills them or whatever. Boom. Of course, you'll get sued. I mean, in civil court, they'll sue you and they'll get everything you own. You'll be a pauper the rest of your life. Everything you make, X amount of it's going to go for, the person who got shot in the head and is a vegetable, and people have to change his diapers and, But if you had the thing of, okay, if something happens, you're going to be fined or whatever, but you're never going to be allowed to own a gun or be someplace where there are guns. I think that would affect a certain number of people that are the type that are shooting off guns or careless with them or something, Maybe 20% or something. Anything would help. Think how much that would reduce, Anyway, man, you hear so many stories about kids being killed by their parents, or boyfriends, babysitting the kid while the mom, while his girlfriend works, and then killing an infant, shaking it too much, or Arlington teen found with loaded gun at school. Arlington is right here in this area. An Arlington teen is in juvenile detention after being found with a loaded gun at school. Arlington police say officers were investigating a potential threat at Sam Houston High School Monday that was posted to social media. The school was placed on lockdown, during which time police found the gun on the boy, 15. Police seized the gun and took the student into custody. The gun had been reportedly stolen out of a vehicle earlier this month. Police say the student was unrelated to the social media post being investigated. Anyway, oh, we love our guns. Thank you very much for watching.